Which of the Bambu Lab bed slinger 3D printers should you buy? The A1 or the A1 Mini? I say which one because if you're considering either of them, then you probably want multi-material printing and don't want to pay over $900 for the privilege. That leaves you with just two real options, the A1 and the A1 Mini from Bambu Lab. Bambu Lab sent me both of these machines, but the way I ended up with them isn't all that straightforward. You see, the A1 Mini was released before the A1, and at the time there wasn't that much of a difference in price. From memory, it was about $100, and a lot of people that bought the Mini were annoyed. If you've just spent $450 on a 3D printer, then paying an extra $100 to get a bigger bed seems like a great deal, and many people regretted buying the Mini once the A1 was released. I get sent a lot of 3D printers to review, but when the A1 was released, even I hovered over the buy button for a little while, as I couldn't believe what was on offer for the price. Luckily for me, while I was trying to justify buying a 3D printer when I have a workshop full of them, I was offered the A1 combo by Bambu Lab. I, of course, jumped at the offer and said, yes please, and literally the next day the A1 combo arrived with a box full of filament. Now, while I was sent both of these 3D printers free of charge, nobody has any influence over the content of my video or gets to see any of the videos before they're released. I quickly set up the A1 and started to play, and honestly, I loved the new things I could do with the ability to change filament automatically during a print. However, as you may know, the A1 has had a slightly unfortunate start to life. Not long after release, and just as I started to get going with my testing, some of the cables that connect the main printer body to the heat bed became damaged, and the resulting damage could potentially have posed a safety risk. Bambu Lab did the responsible thing and immediately issued an alert for everybody to stop using their A1 until a fix was found. Obviously, this left the manufacturer with a lot of egg on their face and a very big potential hole in its pocket. But more importantly, it left me unable to make pretty multicoloured knickknacks. While, like everyone else, I patiently waited for a fix, Bambu Lab offered me the A1 Mini to test. I obviously said, yes please. I mean, it's the least they could do when the free 3D printer that I didn't really need was out of action while I waited for a free replacement part to arrive. I'm obviously joking, and if you did buy the original A1 and had to wait for the fix, I hope that you're back up and running again and glad you bought it in the first place. So, once the Mini arrived, I was back up and running again, but with this tiny little printer that surely wouldn't be big enough to do anything worthwhile. But actually, what really surprised me about the A1 Mini is that it feels exactly the same as the A1 to use, and it has a build volume that allows you to print quite a lot of stuff. The Mini is actually a little bit quicker to get started with because there are less parts to put together, but once you have it powered up, the setup process is exactly the same on the two machines. That is, that you tell your printer your Wi-Fi details, scan a QR code to connect it to your free Bambu Handy account, and it takes care of the rest. There's literally nothing for you to do except wait for it to finish. Bambu Lab really prioritised the user experience, and it's actually quite difficult to explain to somebody who's never owned a 3D printer before why the experience of using a Bambu Lab machine is so good. Depending how old you are, you might remember when the original iPhone came out. I certainly do. At the time, we were all using gimmicky phones with flip-out bits and replaceable plastic faces. Everyone was playing with cheesy ringtones and basic games, but there wasn't really much to choose between one pointless gimmick and another. Then, out of the blue, this futuristic, sleek, simple smartphone appeared and moved everything on about 5 years. Apple didn't try to compete with everybody else's gimmicks, they just focused on making the user experience a priority, and it worked. Almost overnight, everyone forgot about the ringtones and flip-out toys, and all the other manufacturers could do was try to work out how Apple had done it and try to copy what they'd achieved. It took years for other phone manufacturers to catch up, and some never did. The way that Bambu Lab have revolutionised 3D printing has felt very similar to me. They've done exactly the same thing as Apple and focused on the user experience rather than the gimmicks. With a Bambu Lab machine, you don't have to know how it works. It just does. I'm sure that some people will watch this and think that I've become a Bambu Lab fanboy, and they might be right. But the only reason I like what Bambu Lab are doing comes from my own personal experience with these two machines. I want 3D printing to be accessible to anyone who wants to create, and the necessity of becoming a 3D printer expert with other machines gets in the way of that. Bambu Lab's first machines were expensive, worth the money by all accounts, but out of reach for the average 3D printer user. The A1 and the A1 Mini are much more affordable, but still have many of the features that make using a Bambu Lab printer so enjoyable. They print fast. Okay, not quite as fast as Bambu Lab's flagship machines, but way faster than other open machines affectionately known as bed slingers. Bambu Lab surprised many when they released these bed slingers, as all the other manufacturers were in the process of dropping the development of their tried and trusted models to try and copy the enclosed Core XY trend. The A1 series of printers showed that it isn't the actual form factor that makes for a good experience, it's more than that. So, if you don't know already, both the A1 and the A1 Mini are capable of printing at a top speed of 500 millimeters per second with accelerations of 10,000 millimeters per second squared. If you buy the combo option of either machine, then you receive the AMS Lite, which is Bambu Lab's stripped down version of their automatic material system. This plugs into the side of the printer and seamlessly allows the printer to choose which of the 4 reels of loaded filament it wants to use at any time while printing. As the printer can then pick and choose when to print with each material or filament colour, it can even change partway through a layer, multiple times if needed. This clever system gives you the ability to print models that are already made up of multiple colours when they come off the bed, so there's no need for extensive prepping and painting. The downside is that every time the filament is changed, the previous material has to be purged out of the nozzle. This results in quite a lot of wasted filament, which, depending how many changes are needed, can add up to quite a lot of waste. However, it is a really clever system and gives us the ability to print things that look way more impressive than they used to when we could only print a single colour per layer. The AMS Lite works exactly the same way with both the A1 and the A1 Mini, but unfortunately you can only use one AMS Lite with either machine, which means you're limited to just 4 different materials or colours per print. Now, as good as 3D printers like these are, there are some jobs that are a bit beyond their capabilities. Instead of investing in an expensive new machine for those odd jobs that need more than a home 3D printer can achieve, think about using PCBWay. PCBWay are fast becoming a one-stop shop for anything 3D printed, CNC machined, metal fabricated, or even injection molded. In fact, PCBWay are capable of making pretty much anything you can dream up with their huge range of manufacturing methods. Their 3D printing services are probably going to be the most interesting to people like you and me, and they can now print all of those 3-letter acronyms like SLA, DLP, FDM, SLM, and SLS. If you don't yet know what any of that means, they can print with all the different materials it's possible to 3D print with, including metal. Check out their website from the link in the description for more details, including an instant quick quote where you can see what it would cost to bring your latest idea to life. Now, back to the A1 and the A1 Mini. As we've come to expect with modern 3D printers, there's no bed leveling or manual setup to do with either of the A1 models. The printer handles everything for you. Another clever thing that the A1 models both do is run a process that works out how to print as quietly as possible. There are a number of parts on a 3D printer that contribute to the noise they make while printing, but the Bambu Lab machines actively combat as much as possible by listening to the noise each motor makes and then figuring out how to operate them as quietly as possible. I wasn't actually prepared for how effective this is, and all you can hear from either machine when they're running is fan noise, which is eerie. Both machines have cameras where you can sort of see what's going on, but actually compared to some other machines, the camera placement is quite poor and the light is just not bright enough to see what's going on if there's not another light on in the room. What you can do with the Bambu Handy app though is generally see what your printer's up to and control it if you want to when you're not on the same network as your 3D printer. This is a great feature and doesn't cost anything extra, which is great. There are some other clever things that both machines do, like active flow rate compensation, which in basic terms measures the pressure of the material behind the nozzle to ensure that what's squeezed out produces the best possible print quality. This also works really well, and print quality on both machines is great no matter what filament you use. Both machines are capable of printing with lots of different filaments, but there are some limitations. For instance, you can't use the AMS if you want to print with flexible filaments like TPU. It can be printed, but not pushed down the long tubes that the AMS needs to use. Try pushing cooked spaghetti down a straw if you want to know why. You'd also need to switch the standard stainless steel nozzle that both machines come with to a hardened steel one if you wanted to print with any of the abrasive filaments like those that glow in the dark or have fibres in. Changing the nozzle means a hot end swap, which is ridiculously easy to do, and the new ones are not that expensive when you consider how long they last. Temperature wise, both hot ends reach 300 degrees, but the bed on the A1 goes a bit hotter. It can reach 100 degrees while the Mini only reaches 80 degrees. In real world use, this is unlikely to cause you much of an issue unless you want to print with some of the really tricky filaments. Without an enclosed chamber though, you're going to probably struggle to print those filaments on any bed slinger. When it comes to working out what to print and getting it ready, Bambu Lab have another trump card. Not only is the Bambu Lab Studio software easy to use, you can search for things to print, slice it, basically setting them up ready for your printer, send the file to your printer, and then watch the print running via the camera, all from inside the same software. This is another well thought out process, and while the software is based on open source software, the way that Bambu Studio integrates with Bambu Lab's machines makes finding and printing stuff a lot easier, especially for newcomers. There are a couple of downsides to the A1 printers though. I've already mentioned that the lack of an enclosure means that it's tricky to print with certain types of filament, but there's also another downside to having your printer's bed exposed. One thing I've noticed with my enclosed printers is that the bed adhesion stays for much longer without the need for cleaning. This is because dirt and dust is much less likely to land on the bed in between prints, which makes it harder for filament to stick. It's therefore a good idea to regularly clean the print surface on any open bed printer with denatured alcohol to keep those reliable first layers. There's also a bit of a similar negative about the AMS, which is also not enclosed. Whilst you might get some contamination with dirt and dust, the biggest problem is moisture. 3D printer filament is hygroscopic, which means that it absorbs moisture from the air around it. It can get very humid where I live, and protected filament always prints much better in the long term compared to any that's been left out. As the AMS is designed in a way which leaves the filament exposed, I have to keep an eye out for any degradation in print quality and then dry that filament with a separate filament dryer just to keep on top of things. There are a couple of options out there that would help with this, but I haven't tried any just yet. It's also possible to print directly from a filament dryer, but you don't quite get the same slick experience if you do. So, what about that A1 cable problem? Well, it's fixed now. People like myself who already had the A1 were sent free replacements if they wanted to do the repairs themselves, or were able to return their printer for a full refund if they weren't up to it. All the new A1s have the modified cable with the protection to stop the cable getting damaged like the original ones. So once I had both printers running side by side, what did I find to be different, and why would you choose one over the other? The printers obviously look a bit different, with the Mini using the cantilever design, which actually makes it look a bit smaller than it is. This design doesn't actually impact the print speed or quality at all like you might think. As I said earlier, both printers print at the same speeds, and I haven't noticed any difference at all in quality. What does make a difference to what you can print is the size. The A1 has a print volume of 256 cubed, and the A1 Mini has a volume of 180 cubed. This alone may make your decision for you depending on the size of things you want to print. However, if you're new to 3D printing and are not yet sure what you want to print, then the decision might be a little bit more difficult. When the A1 was originally released at just $100 more than the Mini, then I would say buy the A1 if you can afford it, because it's just better value for money. But Bambu Lab have now reduced the price on the A1 Mini, which may make it a more attractive option. There's now a $150 price difference between the two machines, and the A1 Mini is only $250 or $400 with the AMS combo. With what you get for the money, I think that both of these printers are now outstanding value for money, and I can't imagine anybody being disappointed with either of them. Would you regret saving $150 by opting for the Mini over the A1? I can't really answer that for you. All I can say is that if you want to print things like vases, helmets, or other big models, then the A1 Mini will be too small for you. If you want to dip your toe into the world of 3D printing without breaking the bank, then maybe start with the A1 Mini without the AMS combo for just $250, as you can always add the multi-filament option later if you want. I would also recommend both the A1 and the A1 Mini for complete beginners, as well as younger people. Both machines are extremely easy to set up and use, and you'll be printing within 30 minutes of opening the box, whatever your experience level. I really do rate both of these machines and think that anybody who decides to buy one would be happy. They're really good and a long way ahead of any other budget non-enclosed 3D printer that you can buy right now. As good as these printers are though, there will be some people who they're not quite right for. If you want to print a lot of functional, stronger parts, then you're going to want an enclosed printer. You also shouldn't buy a Bambu Lab machine if you like to tinker or modify your printers in any way. Just like Apple do with the iPhone, Bambu Lab restricts any kind of configuration changes with their 3D printers. So if there's something you don't like, I'm afraid you're stuck with it. There are some enclosed printer options for similar money to the A1, but I'm afraid you would have to trade in the multi-material option for the ability to print with some of those industrial filaments or to tinker. If you do decide to buy one of these Bambu Lab 3D printers after watching this video, then check out the links in the description below where you should find the best possible price I can get for you, and every purchase supports the channel, so everybody wins. If you don't think that either of these 3D printers are right for you, then check out one of these options instead. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.